really the question is, how did I find myself in the gig economy, or for that matter, in any kind of work in 2024? The source of this particular segment of the Gig Geezer comes from a viewer, and that viewer's name is Wishbone L7. And Wishbone, I've noticed in recent Geezer uploads, has commented on a few segments. And on this particular segment, he posed me the question: why would you, or why would I, want to step away from the professional office environment to go haul packages? Isn't there a lot of opportunities through insurance and the healthcare field? I felt that my giving him a written reply would be far too difficult for me, because it's not a short and concise answer. It's actually a long answer. And so I figured that maybe in my answering this may help somebody else or inspire someone else. Now, to give you the short of this answer is that the professional environment has never been me. It never was me, nor it's ever been me. And I can also say, for that matter, the corporate environment. It's never been me. It never was me. And it's an environment that I've never really fit in with. And I'm talking from me personally, from my personality, my disposition, my tendencies, just me, my inner being. You kind of know where you fit. That's what it boils down to. You get to a certain point in life, you know where you fit. And for me, that professional environment just hasn't been me. Even though the fact of the matter is that I have my own agency. I have an office in which, downtown Columbia, in which I actually got the office because I needed to have a brick and mortar office to set up my agency, and that was back in 2016, 2017. I've not really used it for that. I've had maybe 5 people come into my office for the purpose of insurance, be it my meeting with an insurance rep or an actual customer. And that's kind of hard to believe, you would think, though. But I've heard of other people who have been really, really successful having an office, 1-2 person operation, and never really had a lot of visitors. They just, whatever works for that person. In this particular case, I'm going to answer the question this way too. For those who never paid attention, my formal background has been in media. I am a former newspaper reporter, and my goals of being in media dates all the way back to childhood. In fact, at my sixth grade graduation, and that's been a little over 50 years ago, when all my classmates and all were talking about what they want to be when they grow up, I said I wanted to be a sports reporter. And I actually was a sports reporter. I did that professionally for almost 15 years. And then what I could also say is that I was at one point one of the best in the country, based on being recognized by a panel of judges within the business. I overall, working in media or in the newspaper business, or in aspirations, however you want to call it, I started writing in junior high. I wrote in high school. I wrote in college. I wrote at a weekly newspaper. I wrote at the very, very small daily newspaper starting out in New Braunfels, Texas, which is outside of San Antonio. And I worked my way up to the largest newspaper I worked at was the Richmond Times-Dispatch in Richmond, Virginia. And at the time, it was one of the top 100 newspapers according to circulation in the country, meaning that it was one of the top 2% of the business. The only level that I didn't write at was like at your New York Times and Houston Chronicles, Los Angeles Times. For whatever reason, I could never get there. So really the question is, how did I find myself in the gig economy, or for that matter, in any kind of work in 2024. Since February 2000, I will say that it's been a constant process of me having to refine myself. It started with me working in a car lot 3 months after getting out the newspaper business. Actually, 2 months after my getting out the newspaper business. I mean, you could have not told me 2 years prior that I would be working in a car lot trying to track down people who may not wanted to buy a car. You could not have told me that. In fact, 2 years prior, the car lot was a part of the jokes that I made with certain coaches who should have gotten fired or who did get fired, and I was saying that that might be where they would be working. Never would have thought that I'd be working at a car lot. But the reason why I landed at a car lot is because I needed to make money. And my spouse at the time, my ex, told me about this car lot that was a hot place where people would go work and make money just like that. And it was true. I mean, guys, people who worked there, if prior to me getting there, it was known that folk, if they could make $5,000 in a month at that car lot, there was something wrong with them, because people made money. Now, by the time I got there, the internet was becoming a part of everyone's lexicon, and the internet was changing how people buy cars. And so making $5,000 a month eventually became a great month instead of a very, very average month at the car lot. But a year later, I got my first licensing in insurance. And how did I get into insurance? It was through a fellow salesperson whom I thought was one of the more credible and respected salespeople at the lot. He told me how he had been an insurance agent, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's something there, because I don't like the car lot. I don't like the scamming that goes on. I don't like people being lied to and having their heads knocked to the next state line in a bad deal. So I actually applied and was offered a job at an insurance company as an agent, and I was told what I need to do now is go get my license. And so that week, I got it all done within a week. I went to an all-day training that helped me prepare for the licensing test. And at that car lot that I'm telling you I worked at, that it was known for being open from like 9 a.m. to midnight. And the guys who worked the first shift worked from 9 until like 6. And I worked the second shift, and I come in from noon till midnight. And so the next couple of days, I was basically up. When I get home from the lot after by like 12:30, 1 a.m., I'd stay up until like 3, 4 in the morning studying, preparing for that test. I passed the test on the first go. So then, so I worked as a captive agent. A captive agent is basically an employee of an insurance company. Like when I worked for in property casualty, I worked for State Farm briefly, I worked for Nationwide briefly, and I worked for Allstate for almost a year. And when you're a captive agent, you can only sell their stuff, and you sell their stuff, and the business that you write is basically the principal agents. But then when you're the principal agent, the business that's written under your agency is really the insurance companies. It's Allstate's. So the business that I write now as an independent agent, having my own agency, it is really mine. And at some point, if I want to get out of this, I can sell my agency and somebody buy my book of business. So the question still is, why would I pursue delivery and transport as opposed to pursuing insurance? Because it's never really been my area of interest, and I can't really say that it's entirely my expertise. But what I will say is that what you will find in life is that you're constantly making adjustments. It's a constant challenge of redefining yourself. And I have gone through several iterations of myself since 2000. A, working in a car lot. B, being in insurance. And then there was another period between 2007 and 2012 where I actually rediscovered myself again, I felt, in writing and hosting podcasts, and that I was back into media, so to speak, back into the creative realm, and I put a lot of effort in that. I sold some, there were books that were sold and all, but I really didn't make any money in doing what I really like doing, and that's the problem. Oftentimes, the things that you really like to do most, the things that really is your innermost passion, are sometimes things that you don't make any money doing. In fact, those are the things that you would do damn near for free. That's kind of the way it was when I was a newspaper reporter. I mean, when I first started, particularly at a weekly newspaper in Houston, I got paid $50 a week, and even then, the people didn't want to pay me the $50 a week. In fact, they may have paid me once or twice, and then the other times they're trying to wash my face as if I owed them something, as opposed to them saying that they really just they provided me an opportunity to work my way into the business. Anyway, so I've shared how I got into the gig economy, and for whatever it's worth, within this segment of the Gig Geezer, I didn't know anything about gig apps until 2016. And how I found out about it was, I have two sisters. The one that's closest to me in age, who's like 2 years, we're 2 years apart. The one that's closest to me in age, that sister visited me in September 2016, and she told me she was coming in by way of the airport, and she said, "Oh, I can take a Uber. I'll take a Uber." I'd never heard of Uber. I thought it was a new cab company here in Columbia, because I knew about the blue cab company here in Columbia. I know about a yellow cab because I worked at yellow cab in Houston. There's a yellow cab pretty much in any city. I never heard of Uber, so I told her, I'll pick you up. Don't worry about it. I'll pick you up." In fact, it would not been right if I had not picked up my sister. But a couple of weeks after she left, I'm looking for something that will allow me the flexibility to pursue building my personal insurance agency. As I mentioned, in 2016, I started my own agency in property and casualty. I needed something that allowed me the flexibility, at least during the daytime, work on building my business as an insurance agent, or at my insurance agency, but at the same time allow me an opportunity to go out and make some extra money for my daughter, who was in her second year of undergrad studies. And then I noticed the term Uber, and then I noticed the term Lyft, and then I did some more research, and I saw where people were making $25, $30 an hour, $35 an hour, and I'm like, well, let me see if I can get in on this. That was on a Tuesday. That Friday, I picked up my first fare. So that's how I got into the gig economy, and from there, I've kind of evolved in the gig economy. Once again, I've kind of redefined myself in the gig economy over time. 2 years later, I found out about Amazon Flex. I found out about Roadie. I got tired of picking up people in my car, folk who would come in who breath would stink, or they would stink, or they'd smell like smoke, or there's a potential of my getting sick because they were sick, or you get a bunch of petulant, bad actor young folk who would be reaching over you and stuff, and trying to turn on your radio or turn on your AC, or asking if you let down the window and so forth. Well, my delivering packages or food, eventually when I'm doing DoorDash and Postmates and Uber Eats, hamburgers and packages don't talk. You just take those, drop them off, and you're in the relative autonomy of not dealing with other people. And then eventually I found out about other gig apps, and then I found out about, as I mentioned in a recent segment, about how the idea of me pursuing the ownership and operation of a sprinter/cargo van. As you can tell, I have evolved with whatever I've done. As a newspaper reporter, I evolved in what I did. Writing books, I evolved in what I did as writing books. As an insurance agent, I evolved as I did that. So I've always been open to redefining myself as I go with whatever it is. Hopefully I'm making sense of what I'm saying. I've always redefined myself in whatever pursuit it is I've gone after. And whatever I've gone after, I've tried to be good at it because I was raised with the mindset, whatever you do, be good at it or don't do it at all. So hopefully I've answered your question, and hopefully I may answer the question for somebody else in terms of how do you find yourself in the gig economy. There is no exact answer in how you go about doing that, but whatever you do, you try to be open to evolving, redefining yourself as you go, and in the process you may find something that you may really like. I'll leave you with these numbers. Now, when I was a newspaper reporter, even though we're talking different time, different era, the most money I ever made in a single year as a newspaper reporter was $31,000, and that was 1991. That would probably be about $50,000 in 2024. The most I made in car sales, because I never was at a car lot long enough. I never was at a single car lot an entire year, but for whatever that year that I worked, the most I ever made at any dealership was $45,000. That was 2002. I made that all within about 9, almost 10 months. As an insurance agent, the most I ever made in a single year is like $42,000, just as an insurance agent alone. That's even with my own agency starting back in 2016. Most I ever made is like $42,000, $45,000. So then I get into the gig economy, doing gig apps, primarily gig apps, transport, delivery, and all. Well, last year, 2023, I made the most money I ever made in any single year, $112,000 before just gross revenue. Gross revenue, I made $112,000. This year, despite what I've been sharing about how things have been slow in recent weeks and months, I am right at, as of today, October 31st, 2022, I'm at 90,000. And so I'm on pace to top 6 figures again in 2024. So I've made it work for me. I've made whatever I've done, whatever I've gone after, work for me, and I've tried to do make as much as I can in whatever I've done. Again, insurance and health care just wasn't me. And so hopefully I've answered your question. And so if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer and any other segment of Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button. Give my content a thumbs up. Share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm Inwood Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.